Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I am your host as always, Professor Prime. And today we're going to talk about math and the Legend of Dragoon, a seriously underrated classic that deserves way more attention than it gets, and I can't stress that enough. So here's how it's going to go. I'm going to tell you basically what the game is about, and I'm going to tell you about the gameplay, the story, the music, and how math plays a role in all of that, and more. I'm also going to be talking about my experiences with the game, so it'll be kind of like a way for me to reminisce while kind of giving somewhat of a loose analysis and review in the process. And that seems to be how these math and gaming videos have evolved, which I'm okay with. Like, it's pretty fun, and I'm glad that they've been going in this direction. So that being said, I will try to avoid spoilers whenever possible. I will be trying to keep them to a minimum because I feel like The Legend of Dragoon is a game that it's nice to go in there blind as far as story elements are concerned. And I want people to play this game and have fun with it and experience it for all its coolness. But I will definitely be talking about some other stuff, and again, trying to keep the specific story elements and spoilers to a minimum. So yeah, you're free to assume spoilers if you really don't want to take that risk. Otherwise, let's get into it. So here we go. The Legend of Dragoon is a Japanese role-playing game, a JRPG, and there are a lot of things that that genre implies when a game has its label. Um, but I think with this game, it manages to, sure, have a lot of elements that you'd expect it to have, but it also puts a twist on that like turn-based JRPG formula, and I like that. So I'll be talking about like a lot of different things, and I feel like starting with the gameplay is a good way to go, and we can kind of go from there. So with the gameplay, you have the world map, you have the field screen, and you have the battle screen. With the world map, you have your character moving around and looking at different scaled models of cities and dungeons and so on and so forth. There's already a lot of math in the scaling to start and how far you have to walk or what you have to do to get to this place and that place. But that being said, then you have the feel where you're actually like in the cities or in the dungeons and all that sort of stuff. And then you have your battle screen, and there's math involved in all of it, and like how it's situated, how it all like functions, how the gameplay changes depending on where you're at. And with the battles, there are random battles, random encounters. There's also, plot relevant battles, and there's some optional battles, some of which are really fun. Um, that being said, let's talk about how these battles go. So, one, you battle, you get experience, you level up, and we'll get into some different ways that that happens because there's a lot of nuance going on. But that's the real basic part, right? And your experiences, sorry, your levels are depicted by numbers. The amount of experience points that you get is displayed by numbers. And there's a lot of math in just that from the get go, and that's just how it usually works in a lot of games like this, right? But that's not all, right? You have stats. In this case, there's some typical stats, but there's also some different ones. There's attack, there's defense, magic attack, magic defense, speed, and then there's also like sorry, there's also stats that indicate if your hits are going to land or and both for regular attack and magic, and also like if you're going to avoid hits and regular hits and magical hits. So all things tied together, and they're all linked by numbers, and the idea is like each number represents where you are in the game with that. But they all let you know like what amount of damage you're going to dish out, how much damage you can take and resist, as well as how your attacks are hitting. Because like it's not enough to just say, "Oh, I'm dealing a lot of damage." It's like, but how accurate are you, right? And then for the flip side of that, it's like, okay, it's not just about how much damage you're resisting. It's like, is that attack even hitting you, right? And there's like numbers associated with all of these things, right? And I think that's pretty cool. And as you gain levels, these things increase. Things also change with weapons and items that are attached. Ice is being made, if you were wondering. I heard it. Uh, but that being said, that stuff's pretty generic, right? Like that comes with a lot of these sort of games. It's still cool though, but it's not what sets this game apart. What does, however, is two big things: the addition system and the Dragoon system. So with the addition system, you get that whether you're in your regular form or your Dragoon form. With your regular form, the idea is right. Like say you're attacking just regular, In most games, you would just hit and that would be it. Here, it's a little different. You hit, but then you see two squares converging. If you press the right button at the right time, bam, you're doing an additional hit. And as you go on in the game, you'll get new types of additions. And with each addition that you have, those additions are getting layers to themselves, if that makes sense. So you'll get a new type of addition that will get new additions to it. There's a better way to say that. But the idea is like, say you have an addition type attack, and each of those has an addition you can add to. Why am I having such difficulty with this? So you'll get a new type of attack that works with the addition mechanic, and as you like level up and you do more accurate attacks with the addition system, you'll get more additions to that. I'm making this more complicated than it is. The idea is like, let's say I start with one type of attack, and let's say I can do two additions, for instance. I might increase the amount of additions I could do with that particular attack, but I might also develop some new attacks as the game goes on, and those attacks can also get additional additions. I really wanted a better way to talk about all this, but I hope like that makes it a little bit more clear. But the idea is like there's a lot of math that goes into the timing as far as getting the squares to align. There's a lot of math in the squares themselves. There's a lot of math in just how the combat flows, and it's just very interesting to me. And then you get certain items, like certain magical attack items, where you have to do some quick button presses to increase like the amount of damage you're doing. And I think with those you can get up to like I think 300% if you're maxing it out, but you have to do it like quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker to do that. So your timing has to be in point to dish out more damage, and there's math and all of this and how it comes across to you in the screen. And I think that's pretty cool. And then the other big thing that I feel like sets apart the Legend of Dragoon is the Dragoon system. Because here's the thing, right? Like throughout the game, you unlock these Dragoon forms for each of the characters. And with them, you get this like draconic armor, you're floating in the air, and you're able to deal out more devastating attacks. And here's the thing, you have your physical attacks, which there's an addition system there too, but instead of like the squares converging and pressing the button at the right time, there you have a circle and things are moving around clockwise in the circle, and you're trying to hit a certain point, and each point you have is an addition, so you're doing more attacks. So let's say you can go up to like 5, for instance, right? Like you have to hit that circle like 5 times, and then bam, you're able to do 5 attacks. I'm not sure exactly if it was 5. I think it might have been 4, but you might do those, and maybe there was a 5th one if you did it perfectly. I don't know. It's been a bit, but my whole point is that there's an addition system for the Dragoon system too, and then you can also do magic attacks that do devastating damage, but they also consume MP, which I do believe that's a bit harder to recover in that game. Not impossible by any means. Otherwise, the mechanic wouldn't work. But you have to be strategic. And how do you get into the Dragoon form once you initially unlock it? Well, when you are doing your regular attacks and you're doing successful additions, you build up SP, and SP is used to fill up your Dragoon gauge. And once you like build that up, you're able to transform into a Dragoon. And you start off with, let's say, like one turn, but as you building up the levels for your Dragoon, like you're able to stick around longer, stick around more than one turn, right? I think the max is 5 turns, but it also takes more to fill the gauge to get it to 5 turns. And the other thing is you're filling up your SP. Even if you fill up the gauge, there's still SP accumulating. Is time sorry is you're doing it because it helps the Dragoon form grow. And again, like, you don't really see that part. And the other thing that I think they do keep track of, but you have to go digging for it, is like when there's some like additions that you get with you different levels, right? Like you might reach a certain level and it's like, oh, I got this new addition. Um, but in order for those additions to get more attacks, like they have to be done like accurately a certain amount of times, right? Um, and that helps them grow. And I think that's interesting. I think, was there somewhere else I was going with that? I'm not sure, but you want to be strategic with which editions you're going to use. Oh wait, there was a point that I wanted to make with that. So I think the number was like you had to do like 80 is a minimum for some of those. Like so I would have to like get something done at least 80 times accurately to unlock more attacks in whatever edition I'm working on. Which I think this might have been a smoother way than it was to talk about that before. I'm trying to get out of my own head about this. But my whole point is that with the addition system and the Dragoon system, they really do unlock some pretty cool stuff. And there's some crazy things that you can do and like ultimate attacks, that sort of stuff. Um, but then outside of just like those systems, there's some pretty standard stuff. Like you have different items that do different things, right? You have items that heal you. You have items that you equip that could prevent you from taking status elements. Oh, sorry, ailments. Speaking of, I think I fused ideas with where I wanted to go. Because I want to talk about status ailments, but I also want to talk about elements because there's math and all of that too. So with status ailments, there are different ones that you can get, right? Like you can get poison, which is gonna seep your health like about like 10% per turn. But you can be healed from that. There's different ones like confusion, where you might attack your own characters, so you have to be careful there. There's some pretty standard ones too, like stun and all that, petrify. And there's math on how all those work and function. But like I said before, there are items that allow you to heal from status ailments. And how about those elements? So you have elements where one might do more damage than some in some games, but oh my god, why am I blanking in this video? It's really irritating, but I can do a course correct for this particular topic. So with the elements, like they work different in different games, but here there are elements that not quite cancel each other out, but you have them doing more damage to each other. Like you might have fire doing more damage to water than it would other elements, and water doing more damage to fire than it would other elements. And the same can be said with wind and earth, light and dark. And then you have things like thunder and like the neutral element or non-elemental element. There's a better way to say all of this. But you have neutral and you have thunder, and those don't do more damage to other elements, nor do they take more damage. And then you have elements that resist themselves. Like, so, if I have fire, for instance, and I do that on something that's a fire element, then I'm going to be doing less damage as a result. So you have all that, and there's math in that and how they all function, and I think that's cool. So this is a lot as far as combat is concerned, but there's math everywhere with it. So whether you're in combat or just traveling the world map or just going through a town or a dungeon, there's going to be music playing, right? And you might have some quiet and chill tunes, and you might have some ones that are like boss music and things like that, or battle music, and specific types of battle music for bosses and like the eventual final boss. Or you might have people who have themes, right? And there's math in how all of that works. There's math in how the music was composed. There's math in the instrumentation. There's math in the implementation of the music, right? Like there's math and how it all works. There's math and the timing for that music. There's math and how it makes you feel, right? We associate certain music with certain feelings, right? And you might have this music played at a certain volume, or you might have it spaced out in a certain way, or you might be using certain instrument. And there's math and how all of it flows. And then you have the story itself. Like I think most people, if they don't do like all the extras or they don't go on a grinding kick, it might take them around 40 hours to do. I always like to take longer than that. I've had playthroughs of this game where I've taken up to 60 hours. But that being said, the story, there's a lot to it. It is spread out pretty decently throughout the game. And I think that's pretty cool. And there's math in how all that plays out, right? There's math in writing a story and deciding how long it's going to be. And when you're dealing with a video game, how things are going to be paced and how a player might come across this information and how it all connects. And I think that's pretty cool. But math is just everywhere in that, and math is in the production, the development. It's in how it's like rated and how it might be perceived, and that's all interesting to me. And for me, when I bought the game at first, I think I got it when I was 15, so it was well after the game came out. Like back in early 2003, I think. For me, the game came out in 99, so I got it and it was much cheaper than it would have been back then. I got it for like $10 and I got a lot out of that game. I thought the game stopped working at some point, so I did get another one that I came across, and that one was free. Then the game started working again, so now I have two copies, and that's awesome. I have a backup, so it's pretty cool. And if those copies no longer work, I mean, it should be available, I hope, on the PSN. With that in mind, it reminds me that when you are a player, when you are a consumer, and you're buying these games, right, you have a lot to consider. You're like, am I going to get my money's worth? Am I going to regret putting the time into this game or not? Or am I going to be excited about it? Right? There's a lot of math in making those decisions. And for me, I got the game originally for $10. That first playthrough, if I'm not mistaken, was about 60 hours. I felt like it was a good investment money wise and time wise. I got a unique experience and I was more than okay with that. There was a lot to do in that game. There was a lot to experience. Everything came together in a pretty brilliant way. There's a lot of cool and memorable moments, a lot of good things to say about the characters and how they interact with one another in certain situations. And with the game, there's just so much to consider, like, because, there's part of it that takes place in, the modern time. Well, I mean, it all takes place in the modern time, but there are some scenes that kind of cut back to the past, or like they talk about the past a lot. And there's some more things with that I don't want to say because that would spoil it. But the whole thing is like time and the passage of time is a big part of the game, and there's a lot of math in that. So I want to see if there's anything else that I want to say about this game. Well, I guess how the menus are all situated, how they come across to you, the positioning, how big the font is, how it all connects. There's math in that too. There's math in making a product like this work and getting it out there. And for the record, um, The Legend of Dragoon sold over 1 million copies worldwide, and yet I feel like it's still not that well known. But for people who do know it, they tend to have fond memories of it. It's a great game. I enjoyed it. I like RPGs. I like JRPGs, and this one wasn't just your standard fare for JRPGs. And for the record, standard fare is pretty good for a JRPG. Um, but it wasn't just that. It was a unique gaming experience, and I am so glad to have played that game, and I'm so glad to have talked to you about it today. And at some point in the future, I want to replay it because it's really cool, really unique. And every time that I went back and played it, it has lived up, to my memories. There we go. That was a complete thought. I don't know. I'm tired. But and so it throws me off a little bit. That being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little bit more about a game that you did not know about. And if you did know about it, I hope that you've gotten to reminisce about it. And please feel free to talk to me about this game because it's awesome. That being said, I'll see you in the next video. Professor Prime out.